Can I start with a premise that I want to kick off the conversation, and I think about,
Yes.
and it's the notion that the human race has never had a single enemy that's unified us. And we have that for the first time right now, meaning that across the planet, uh, every single country is unified against this virus because this virus doesn't respect any borders. And we
Mhm.
are getting the entirety of every physician, scientist, technologist on the planet um, to get here uh, with a solution. So, by the way, I have a phlebotomist coming to take bloods from me and my family right now, and I think she's trying to reach me.
Peter and I decided that the right thing to do, yeah, he's paused because he's talking to a phlebotomist. It's all good. Um, we decided we wanted to just dispel some myths. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is something that's a video that's already on the channels here, is on this so-called pandemic math. So as soon as he comes back here, we'll get into some of the questions that he can answer as a medical doctor, as a major investor in some of these things. And let's talk about pandemic math and how this actually works. It turns out, oh, you can't read my chart. This sucks. If I flip my video, you know what you're going to see? Check this out. Are you ready? Here you go. You're going to see rocks because it totally rocks. All right, that was a really bad joke. So Aiden, if you're here for Peter, not me, you can hang the F up or wait for Peter. I'm good with you either way, my friend. So here's pandemic math. He'll be right back. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, I flipped the phone. We all good? Somebody tell me we're good. Okay, everyone's just laughing at this point. You can hear me? Yeah, all right, we got it. Okay, this is what the pandemic math looks like. It has an exclamation point, which means it's exponential. Here's the deal. Purple is the number of reported, and we always know this at the beginning of a pandemic. The people say, oh, I have it. Was that a Peter request? Come in, hang on a second. Peter, request from Peter, add. Peter, are you back in? We're waiting for him. It's connecting.
Sorry about that, everybody. Apologies. Please continue, pal. I don't want to cut you off, and I'll jump back in what I was saying.
All right. I want your comments on exactly what I'm talking about, Peter,
Yeah.
because I mean, you've got your math hat on really well. At the beginning of any kind of pandemic, and we're talking MERS, SARS, bird flu, H1N1, swine flu, all these kinds of things, we know our population in the country. That one's pretty easy to do. We know our reported rate. These are people who either have been tested or people have symptoms and doctors said you have it, and we know the percent that die.
Yep.
So what we usually do is we usually go out and we say, okay, what's the ratio of people who died to people reported? It's the end of the world,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
and
the denominator is unknown.
it's actually this fuzzy blue number, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Number of people who got sick.
Yeah.
And then we end up having this incredibly intense conversation, assuming that this ratio will apply to this ratio, but it's really the ratio of this purple thing to this black thing. An example here is that I believe it was MERS or SARS, I forget which one off the top of my head, the initial ratio here was 1.3%. So it's the end of the world, 1.3% of us are going to die. 5 years later, the actual death rate was revised by the WHO. It was down by 65 times to 0.02% of people who got it. So this is not to say that what we're dealing with is not important. It is, especially because the death rate is high amongst old people. It's just that if you're focused on this like the media is, you got to remember this, because this is what it's going to look like in a few years from now when we have this magic blue number. Do you agree, Peter?
I could not agree more. And the problem is that the news media is a machine that is trying to scare the shit out of everybody. and it's trying to, there's a responsible line here where we go into fear mongering and you look at the headlines, it's like, death toll rising, whatever. There have been 100 people who have died in the United States so far. 100 people. There are 100 people who die in auto accidents probably every hour.
Yeah.
So, and when you look at the number and who is dying, right? I'm looking at a website right here. It is 54 people in Washington State, 15 people in New York, um, uh, California's 14 people. The rest of the states are person, two, one person, four people, two people, three people, and such. And if you look at underneath that, who's dying, these are mostly the majority, not everybody, 80% are people in old age homes in their 80s and 90s and 80s and 90s and 70s and so forth, which is to say, listen, this is a tragedy to have these people dying, but these numbers are far less than we're seeing in the flu. And so
Yeah.
we have to be clear about this, because the disproportionate nature of this fear that's destroying the global economy. It's really destroying the global economy. It is wiping out people's savings. We're going to see millions of people not die, but millions of people lose their jobs, and tens of thousands of companies close their doors. And we'll be paying the penalty for that for some time. And yes, we're going to have an overwhelm of the healthcare system. And we've seen an analogy I saw a friend of mine use is like, we heard there's a tsunami and it hasn't come to shore yet, right? So the tide is going out and the tsunami hasn't hit. And so we will see the large number of people who are in the hospital for a whole slew of other reasons. Those hospitals will be overloaded by corona, and so those people who might normally have been in ICU beds won't. And this is an issue, but I just want to make sure that people understand the numbers right now, not only in the United States, but what are the numbers in the countries who have gone through this, China and Singapore and South Korea, Italy and France. We're seeing, China's total death toll was like 3,300 people. And now they had like one new case in the last couple of days of infected people. So they're over that hump. We're not seeing China had 1 million people, a population of 2 billion people, by the way, right? So I'm just super concerned about how do we balance the need for safety, and I'm taking this very seriously as well, against this level of a pandemic of fear, which has very real, equally destructive, perhaps more destructive.
No, they're more destructive, Peter.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what's the number one predictor of whether you're going to be obese?
Yeah, your mindset and who you spend
No,
time with. Who you spend time with.
that's not even it. It's your
Okay.
economic perspective. In other words, poor people get fat because they can't afford good food. And
Cheap
very
calories.
clear
Yeah.
data on that.
Yeah.
Right? If you live on ramen, you'll get diabetes, you'll get obese, and you'll be sick, and you'll be a burden on the healthcare system. The number of people who will be thrust into poverty as a result of this, by at least one order of magnitude, and maybe two, it is higher than the number of people who are going to get this and die. And yes, I'm staying home, you're staying home. People who are listening saying that we're saying you shouldn't stay home. No, we're staying home because we understand the hospital surge thing. But the amount of fear that's over this, it's a little bit nuts, because the harm we're causing to ourselves is much bigger than the number of people who, by the way, are going to get this. Like if you're over 70, whether you get it now or you get it later, you have a much higher risk.
Really important point there, pal, which is, even if we flatten the curve and if the coronavirus dies out as an infection right now, it'll be back next flu season. Right? It is not being wiped out of our viral sphere, just like influenza doesn't ever get wiped out. It's back and it mutates. Coronavirus is something that as a species we're going to live with. And we're going to live with variations of this corona 2 virus that will mutate. And we will create herd immunity, and we will create vaccines. And one of the things that gives me the greatest hope, and I was putting this out as a video message, maybe it came out this morning, whatever. And I started on this point, which is, I think this is a time that is massively unifying for the world. That is an amazingly positive outcome of this. And my estimate is there are somewhere around the order of 200 million physicians, scientists, and technologists on the planet. And I guarantee you, in my ecosystem, every single person is focused on on detection, vaccination, or cures. And so we've never seen that many people on one subject ever before. And the amount of solutions that are in the pipeline that are going to just like overwhelm this thing. It's like a bucket brigade that everybody out there in the world has gotten a bucket and they're running towards the fire, and a few people are coming, but when everybody, it's going to be a tsunami of solutions coming our way.
There's something else that I believe is going to happen as a side effect of this that has me kind of dancing. And this is the falling apart of harmful regulatory regimes. I talked to the CEO of a company who does testing of human tissues, a direct-to-consumer person, a person we both know, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he said, we can test for this. It wouldn't even cost any more than what we do in our existing test. He said, but until the FDA says I'm allowed to, until there's no risk for it, I don't know how to do this. And he talked to other CEOs. They were ready to do this test long before the government said, oh, you're allowed to do it. So the idea that we can have medical freedom to take care of ourselves, it will come out from this, because some of the people who do things like ozone therapy, which has worked on SARS and MERS and has worked since World War I, maybe we'll actually do that even though it's not a drug. And maybe if I want to take an experimental vaccine because it's my body, my choice, you guys ever heard those words before? Well, it applies to all humans.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. There needs to be a mechanism where I call it an accredited patient program. Like if you're right, it's like an accredited investor, right? An accredited patient program that says, okay, I have read this, I understand it. I've had my husband or wife or my physician read it. They understand it. Shoot me up. Take it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about smoking a cigarette. I totally got distracted. Like, why is it that I can get on a ski lift and I can smoke a cigarette and have a drink of alcohol and I can't do this other stuff? It is unconscionable. It's an economic thing.
Yeah, I agree. So let me hit on a couple of things real quick. And I saw some stuff going on. First of all, anybody watching here, vaccines and vaccination is fundamental to science and health. And vaccinations don't cause any issues. It's like anybody who says, what?
Peter, I got to pause for 1 second, just in the interest of scientific honesty.
Yes.
Okay. My wife, Karolinska trained medical doctor, she had all of the vaccines for Doctors Without Border all on the same day so she could go practice. And it caused an inflammation in her brain that took her out of medical work for 6 months until her brain came back. So they can, in some circumstances, with some amounts of input on some systems, they can cause some problems. It's an ROI thing. So I
refuse to believe that the influenza vaccine is something that people should not be taking.
Okay, I didn't say influenza. These were all the whatever the heck you have to do to go, to remote parts of Africa.
And going and getting everything at once, it's a different issue. But listen, from my standpoint, everybody should be getting the flu vaccine every single year. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be a coronavirus version of the flu vaccine.
There will be. And it's probably worth taking, unless the death rate is way down here, right? In which case, I don't mind if we wait a year or two to experiment on other people. Right.
And then I will still promote to every single person who reads my work that you should be vaccinating. We should be vaccinating our families, and perhaps it's vaccinating just in that case at the very low end, the people who are at risk. But vaccination is science; it is not myth, and it doesn't cause autism. So I want to be clear about that.
Totally hear you there. I'm watching the comment thread here, and there's a bunch of people who are polarized against vaccines. You're kind of polarized for vaccines. Because here's the deal. Vaccines are another technology for hacking the human body for modulating immune response. Right? Now, you have to decide, is this technology, is this immune response I need with what I want, is the ROI there for you? And so to reject all vaccines as being stupid, sorry guys, the tetanus vaccine, my tetanus vaccine had run out. I work on a farm here, guys. I stepped on a rusty nail and I just hadn't done it. I actually got tetanus. Lockjaw, the stuff that kills you if you don't treat within 24 hours. I got my immunoglobulins. And you know what I did afterwards? I got the tetanus shot I should have had before. And it's okay, right? Now, does that mean that I think I need a flu shot that has questionable effectiveness the way I read the science? Probably not, because for me, the ROI isn't there. Now, Peter would disagree. And the thing is, we both are allowed to make our decisions like that. But for you to sit here and say all vaccines are dumb and bad, that's like saying all surgeries are dumb and bad. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's a shovel. You can do different things with a shovel. You can dig holes, you can get someone over the head with it. So, like, we all need to just chill the F out. Peter knows what he's talking about here. And for him to say there is a vaccine that will be coming for coronavirus that may be worth taking, in his mind is worth taking, in my mind probably is worth taking, that's a pretty credible guy. And you just have to you have to roll with that. But don't just fall down that, like, Trumpian, I'm just going to say if it's the V word, no or yes. Stop being polarized. Thinking. That's what this is about. All right, Peter.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And if folks don't want to watch this anymore because I'm pro-vaccines, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
The reality. So one of the companies that I've just helped capitalize is doing an antibody test for COVID-19.
Nice.
And so, as for folks to know, there are two types of tests that will tell you whether you have it. The first is a PCR test that you put a nasal swab very high in the nasal cavity, and it's got to be swabbed. It is not a pleasant experience, and you're looking to find out whether or not you've got the active virus being produced in your sinus. And then that is then gone and tested to see, do you have an active infection going on? The challenge with that is the specificity and sensitivity varies from 50 to 80%, a lot of false positives, a lot of false negatives.
Yeah.
The flip side of this is an antibody test. You draw bloods and you determine whether your immune system has been exposed to the virus and have you developed antibodies for it. And so what's happened is it just got announced yesterday. I'm very proud to be part of this. In San Miguel County, which Telluride is in, this company called C19, it's a spin out of United Biomedical. We're going door to door and drawing bloods from 8,000 people, and they're going to test all 8,000 people for free. And we're going to basically clear that community, identify either who has never seen the virus because they have no immune system. We're going to check on day 1 and then check again on day 10. And then ultimately what that's going to do is create a clearing of you've had it and you're through it and you're immune. And by the way, I believe, as I think I hear you saying, most everybody's asymptomatic or has minimal symptoms, right? So I had a 99.4 degree temperature for 2 days last week. Was that it? Who knows? I don't know. And so I think that we're seeing most of the reason we see no deaths below, age 20 or thereabouts, and lots of deaths in 70s and 80s is our immune system is always fighting viruses, right? We have natural killer cells running through our body that are identifying infected cells and killing those cells in your body that are infected by a particular virus. And when you're young, you have a vibrant immune system that's able to just go and play video games and knock out those cells. As you get older, your immune system, you go through an immune system, not only suppression, but an immune system scarcity. And that's the same reason why you develop cancers later in your life, because your immune system is not able to keep up with the rate of cancer formation in your body and it gets away from you. So from my standpoint, knowing whether you have it or have immunity to it is critically important, just to get rid of the mind killer with fear.
Let's go into fear first. I want to go through the things we can do now to lower our risk, or more specifically, to become more resilient. So I want your list of that, and starting with stress, I think is going to be at the very top of that.
So let me tell you. So stress is a mind killer. I basically don't watch the news. I get my news through Google News alerts, but I don't put on the Crisis News Network or Fox and watch news for 2, 3, during times of crisis, 4 or 5 hours a day. It will literally put you on panic. One of the things, Dave, that I did that you might like is I've been working on this for 2 years. A machine learning protocol that scours the world's news and science journals and social media, looking for positive connotation, future forward connotation, convergence of exponential technologies, and all of these things as they apply to a topic. So we pivoted it a week ago to just focus on coronavirus. and we create a news feed every day that tells you what's going on in the world on solving the pandemic. So how is AI being used? How is data science? How is robotics and CRISPR and gene therapy? How is AR and VR and so forth? It's called Future Loop, and it's free. But every day I get a summary of all of the breakthroughs going on in the world. And if anybody's interested in it, if you just go to futureloop.com/C19, C19, coronavirus. So futureloop.com/C19, you'll get a free subscription to Future Loop. And it's a way of getting the news that is actually useful and positive.
And this is totally free. You're not trying to sell people anything. Like,
no, it's totally free.
Okay,
it's free.
Yeah, I know about Future Loop because Peter's been talking about AI at his Abundance 360 groups. I've been a member for 5+ years. So like I'm very happy with what he's doing here. And this is just an active service from what I understand. So we didn't set this up as like an info marketing, whatever.
No. It's meant to get people. It's like, there's so much amazingly good news in the world that people don't get because the news network only is, if it bleeds, it leads. So it's that. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, it's mindset, which is meditation, limiting the impact of negative use on your mindset. It's sleep, exercise, and diet. So Dave, talk about those and we talk about what you add to your diet supplementation. But what are you doing for mindset?
Well, for mindset, before we get into all the nutritional and things like that, heart rate variability training, if you have a heart rate thing, works really well. If not, almost any meditation app that you like will do just fine. From your team, type the URL. People can't find the URL. It's futureloop.com.
Talia, can you Talia, if you would type that in again, please.
Good deal. Someone's going to type it in for you.
Times.
Good deal. It keeps scrolling. I'm talking and reading at the same time. So literally, and the other thing is something I do with my kids every night. And I just say, hey, tell me your 3 things you're grateful for today. And when you have a kid who does that, you can't go to sleep in that thing. But I'm going to challenge you guys to do something different. 3 things you're grateful for COVID-19 for. You want to turn it around. You have this huge fear response right here. That's generated by the media. Your real numbers, you're probably not going to die. Some of you might die. They might have also died from the flu. And that's kind of where we are. And we're doing our best to not overwhelm the hospitals. I'm staying home. You're staying home. We're all doing our part, right? But, okay, what good things are going to come about as a result of this? Well, okay, you got to stay home maybe with your family this morning. Maybe you got an extra cup of good coffee instead of crappy office coffee. It doesn't have to be a big thing. That's the like, you can just be grateful for something. And honestly, I think we're looking at 3 positive societal changes at least from COVID, and maybe another Patriot Act round of bullshit from the government as well. I don't know. But I'm going to focus on the good stuff here, because if you don't focus on the good stuff, you're just going to hate your life anyway. So that gratitude is the number one thing you can do in meditation or
gratitude. I love that.
Okay, what do you do, Peter,
and
for stress?
I mean, so for me, in the morning I do a meditation for 10 minutes. I try and get some meditation time other time of the day. One of the things I think about is, what are the 3 things I want to do today that if I do them will be making an amazing day, right? Like, set some very concrete positive objectives. Like, I have 2.5-year-old boys, and for the last 5 days in a row, we've been going out and playing baseball every day. And I love the fact that I'm getting them to play baseball. And we've got two Oculus Quest headsets, and so we're having fun in the VR world together. So it's spending time with the family is critically important. Exercise, trying to get in exercise every day, right? So all these things overlay on what things can boost your natural immunity, right? And so we know that immunity is critically important. That's why young people don't get this or have minimal disease versus older individuals. So sleep, trying to get 8 hours of sleep, super critical. Exercise, mindset, and then diet.
There's something around exercise and sleep that's really important, actually, in diet, that has been missing from this long-standing, starting in the 70s with this born to run kind of thing. Long endurance exercise weakens your immune system. It actually does that. It's very well known. People get sick after a marathon. They get sick after endurance training. People have even been taking amino acids forever to try and deal with this problem. So if you like going for these long, kill yourself with long distance cardio, it's actually not going to help you in a situation like this. So you're better off to be a little bit more rested. And what I see in people who are, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to do my long workouts every day of the week, if it's weights or cardio, but it's worse with cardio, is their sleep quality goes down first. Right? Because their cortisol level goes up from overtraining. And you can see it in the heart rate variability data if they have a ring or other things, which is a measure of stress. So don't over-exercise, but you have to move and you should exercise. But a couple intense ones a week that don't just leave you depleted, you don't want to be in a depleted state. And if you do that, you got to sleep and you probably want to eat. And then
do you know what I use, pal, for exercise that's super fun and easy? There's an app that's free called 7 Minute Exercise. It's by Johnson & Johnson, and it takes 7 minutes and it puts you into a great cardiovascular and some muscle strength training. You don't need any equipment, and it's by J&J, and it's called 7 Minute Exercise.
Nice.
It's super easy. I use that in hotel rooms. I use that in the living room, wherever. That's
about all it takes. In fact, one thing my wife does that has made a profound difference, and it's stupid, but it's cool. Every morning, she read the Tiny Habits book by B.J. Fogg, Stanford professor, and said, all right, every time she's blending, she makes bulletproof matcha, and she puts matcha in there instead of bulletproof coffee a lot of the mornings, and I do my coffee, and then we kind of share some of each other's. But she does squats. So she has 25 hard, fast squats while she's holding the blender lid on. Okay, it takes 0 extra time. And then her little yes thing is her matcha sitting right there until she does a bunch of push-ups. She doesn't drink the matcha. Okay, her exercise is done for the day. And let me tell you, she's got a tight little butt that she didn't used to have, and she's over 50, right? That's all it takes, right? That kind of exercise, we can all do it. And 7 minutes a day is all it takes. So if you do that, you're probably as moved as you need to be. You shouldn't sit all day and all that other kind of crap, but like you got 89% of the way there, and you didn't have to just like torture yourself for a long time, especially when you didn't have the gear at home. So Peter, your 7 minute recommendation, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And squats, definitely squats.
And squats. So mindset, what do you let into your mind, right? I would imagine your mindset is the most important thing that you have, right? A person with the right mindset, everything else flows from that mindset. If you're depressed because you're just seeing the world coming to an end and you're seeing just, negative stuff after negative stuff after negative stuff, and it's, oh my God, it's overload. It's going to depress you, not want to exercise. You're going to start reaching for the calories. So mindset's number one. Sleep. We talk about exercise, sleep. What else around sleep, pal?
Well, around sleep,
how much do you sleep?
I sleep 6.5 hours a night, but I get about 2 hours of deep sleep and about 2 hours of REM sleep on a good night, a little bit less. So more deep sleep, more REM sleep than most people get in 8 hours. I monitor it every night. And it turns out people live the longest.
By the way, if you don't have your Oura ring, you can order this right now. OURA. I've got $100 off for using Abundance cool. as a code word for that. But I do use it to monitor how much sleep I get. It measures your temperature as well. So if I have any kind of an increased temperature during the evening, especially during flu season, that's important to know, and heart rate variability and your overall heart rate and so forth. So you get a lot of good data from that.
When you wake up in the morning, it will literally tell you, are you overstressed from a fight or flight perspective? And if so, you don't exercise hard that day. Because if you do, it's going to put you at a higher risk of getting any virus. The code word was abundance, Leanna. So and I've been doing sleep tracking for 14 years. The ring's only been around for a few years. And I'll just say, this is a really cool piece of tech. And look, you're going to be home for the next month, most likely. And they're still shipping this stuff. They're small, they're easy to ship. If you decide that you wanted to get one, you're going to have some time to actually work on hacking your sleep. And the other thing, we have to talk about diet. Okay, the bulletproof diet was very early, like, hey, ketosis really matters. It's a tool. You go in, you go out, you go in, you go out. And now we have this, like, if you eat another carb again, you're a bad person. That doesn't make sense, because you actually need some carbs for sleep and for resilience in feeding your gut bacteria. And that is something where I would say Ketosis works exceptionally well if you're not in it all the time, because when people are in it for a month straight, quite often you start seeing the signs of sympathetic stress, and then your immune system gets weak. So cycle in and out. Don't eat sugar, which suppresses your immune system all the time, but it's okay to have some carbs, especially in the evening. And if you can master that, even fasting is fine. Don't fast till you're exhausted and depleted. That's going to be a really big change for you. So not sugary, not inflammatory fried stuff, and certainly not unending ketosis, but never super high carb. Make sense?
It does. Let me just throw out a point. We're getting a lot of questions. My team, as yours is, writing down the questions. I'm going to do a rapid rapid and bullet answering of these questions. So people, please, your questions are being recorded. So Pal, on the immunity front, there's a number of other things. For example, zinc is important for immunity. There is a number of fruits and vegetables. What do you see on sort of the diet side of the equation there?
Are you asking me or your team?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I just did a little mini podcast where we talked about something called IL-6 or interleukin 6. It's the primary inflammatory cytokine that goes nuts if you get the virus and you start getting really bad effects from it. In other words, you get what's called a cytokine storm. Well, this is the cytokine. So what do we know about IL-6? Well, it turns out anyone like me who's had problems with autoimmunity and chronic inflammation for most of their life has found a way to manage IL-6. It's one of the things you can do. So I mentioned in this podcast like 40 different things that affect IL-6 and modulate it or suppress it. And some of the really powerful ones are turmeric. And some of the other really powerful ones are the mitochondrial enhancers. There's a rare Chinese herb a lot of people don't know about where there's a study on IL-6. That's one of the ones I use in the bulletproof turmeric supplement. There's boswellia. There's frankincense. There's cat's claw. And just the list goes on and on and on. This is a transcript of the whole thing. And all those are with studies. So what I would say here is more of the superfoods that suppress inflammation. There's plenty of information out about those. And if you do find that you're starting to get an inflammation, I'm coughing a little bit, I've got a little bit of whatever going on. Maybe I have it, maybe I just have a cold, and maybe I'm just a little tired. If that's the case, you should hit it with a handful of anti-inflammatories. The most important one that I would say from a data perspective, if you can find it, is called andrographis. And this is a supplement / I suppose you call it a food item. It's an Ayurvedic thing. Andrographis is shown to reduce the likelihood of getting and the duration of respiratory infections, viral or bacterial, by 20%. And so, in fact, there might even be one around the old SARS for it. But it was the most studied that I could find that's likely to work. It's never been studied against COVID. Nothing has, right? But if you were to play the odds there, so bottom line is more superfoods, more polyphenols. Blueberries were on the list, by the way, of what controls IL-6. So hack your IL-6 and listen to that episode. It was pretty full information. About 40 research studies went into it.
Nice. That's great. And I put out a blog yesterday on immunity. One of the things that's interesting is this whole concept of augmenting your immunity with natural killer cells. So one of the companies that I co-founded called Cellularity out in New Jersey, it's the largest bank of placental-derived cells. So the placenta is a 3D printer that manufactures the baby. And in the placenta, the baby is protected for almost all viral infections by the immunocells in the placenta, natural killer cells and T cells. And so what Cellularity has done is it's just filed an IND with the FDA to use placental-derived natural killer cells as an IV infusion for people who are in extreme respiratory distress on ventilators, to bring them out. So the idea of supplementing your own immune system. And I hope everybody's been watching the news recently, and I'm just reading this, that hydrochloroquine, along with basically a Z-Pak, right? This combination.
Azithromycin,
azithromycin has in France in these studies totally knocked out the virus from in 5 days' time. So, I mean, for me, this is like, holy shit, this is like a stunning result. And so there's going to be a lot of studies that are going to come out over the next week where in parallel hospitals around the world are trying this combination therapy. But that is definitely a hopeful sign. And that's when I start to say, you know, it's not like this is a small disease someplace in a little isolated country where there's only a small amount of research money going into it. This is something that the entire world is running tens of thousands of parallel experiments with all the top scientists and engineers saying, try this, try this, try this, try this. And I think we're going to find solutions faster than anybody's imagined.
There's so many things like that going on. In fact, I think if I ran a nursing home right now, I would be stocking up on the hydroxy quinine and Z-Packs, but
yeah,
there isn't enough of it to go around for healthy young people, which is one of the reasons you probably shouldn't like go out and find it if you still can. I'm on some lists, as you probably are, with high-end doctors who are in the trenches working on this, and we're discussing these things. The data so far is pretty amazing on that combination of things. So what I'm doing, because I'm not at high risk, I've had my own natural killer cells cultured and put back in. At this point, like I don't know, as a former 300-pound guy, like I'm as bulletproof as I know how to be. I also have an ozone machine down here that does medical ozone, which is what I would do for any infection. This is the first thing I would do. So I feel like I've got a backup plan, and I'll save the Z-Packs for my grandma. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
I think that is correct. By the way, I'm seeing just the flow of comments here. The term was for the Oura Ring was abundance, ANCE, not abundant. Let's hit some of these questions that came in. 5G, guys, 5G is not causing this. Please, I don't want to. I want to put water on rumors. 5G may cause other things. It's not causing this situation. And the other thing is, from every expert I know out there, this is not a man-made virus. This is a virus that these happen all the time. Viruses move from the animal world into the human world, and we've seen coronaviruses before.
Peter,
if scientists have only,
I'm totally with you on the this came from animals. There's abundant evidence. There's very little evidence that this came from some magic mad plot to destroy the world. I did at your conference.
That's not to say to say that germ warfare and bio warfare is something we should ignore. I mean, it could very well be an issue.
It's always something to pay attention to. On the 5G front, I asked a selection of CTOs. You had some CTOs of the largest companies in the world on your stage at Abundance 360 about 3 or 4 years ago, about whose job it was to look at the biological safety. In that case, I wasn't specifically going to EMFs, but I was looking at like light really close to the eyes and what that was going to do to our brain. But it's a similar question. And I mean, to their credit, these are some smart guys. I'm from the CTO world, computer science guy, right? And they all kind of looked at it like, that's not our job. And when you say 5G isn't doing anything, I do have some EMF equipment, a pulsed electromagnetic device back here that makes your muscles. How do we know?
To be specific, I'm saying that 5G did not cause this pandemic.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. I think it's a little ludicrous to say it caused this pandemic. It doesn't make sense to me.
That was the question. And I mean, can 5G cause cellular damage? Can it cause cancer and so forth? I don't know.
Thank you for the clarification. I don't know either. I suspect it probably does some bad stuff at higher doses to some people, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a separate question of, is the virus a side effect of 5G? That doesn't pass the sniff test for anything I understand scientifically.
So what other question? Why is the media trying to scare us? So the media's job is one thing: to deliver eyeballs to their advertisers. Is advertising based. And at the end of the day, if we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. And so good news networks fail, and negative news networks catch your attention and keep you glued to the TVs. So that's why. What's the silver lining all this? I think I view this almost as a practice pandemic. Its decimation from the economy and for lives is high, but she can come in. But she can just do the blood draw right here.
All right, Peter's doing a blood draw on camera.
Wait.
I've done this also. I love that.
Okay. Well, actually, it's not happening right this second, but it will happen in a little bit. But the fact is, we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news, and the news media catches our attention and holds it for periods on time. The silver lining here, I think, is we're going to shift a lot of people digitally. We're going to create digital education, work at home. We're going to unify the world. I was talking about a practice pandemic. So this could be a lot worse. We could truly have a mortality rate of this pandemic up there with Ebola. What we don't. And so if this gets us up to speed to keep us from having this crept up on us again, it's getting the world to work together. It's being able to identify a viral strain really fast and then create a vaccine really fast, and platform plays like that. I mean, I think that's silver linings out of here. Views on herd immunity. Yeah, herd immunity is very important. It's a function. Herd immunity means that enough people in the environment have gotten the virus, have recovered from it, that they can't be reinfected, and it just slows the rate down. It's like moderator rods in a nuclear reactor. Thoughts on that?
Peter, I actually got a lot of crap because I posted, I was going for a walk on my farm, and I was just talking with people, and I said, look, if I could get the COVID-19 now, I would. Because I live on a 32-acre farm, I could stay here for 6 months and never see a soul other than my family, right? And we would be just fine. And if I did that, the odds of us being safe are exceptionally high. Except my wife's an ER doctor. I have all the stuff I need to take care of myself, and we're all healthy, right? So from that perspective, that would allow me, hopefully in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, to be able to say, you know what? Hey, older neighbor who's 90 and still has grass-fed cattle that you feed yourself, would you like me to go shopping for you? I'm not going to get sick, and I'm not going to get you sick, okay?
Yeah.
We need a lot more young people who've gotten sick and gotten well. And so there is something useful for that. But here's a question, Peter, and you may know the answer to this. Is there a test that can tell us that we've had it, but we don't have it? In other words, can we test for the existence of antibodies for an older infection so then I'm immune?
Yes.
That's
And in fact, that's what I'm getting. That's the blood test. It's if you Google, what they're doing right now. The media alert went out yesterday. It's United Biomedical Group, C19 company, partners with San Miguel County, Colorado, to be the first in the nation to test an entire county for COVID-19 with their new antibody diagnostic test, right? They're doing it for free. And the cost for this is a couple of dollars per person. It's super cheap to do a blood antibody test, and blood doesn't lie. You either have had it and have got immunity, or you haven't. It's unless you're immunosuppressed, that's the reality. And so and so they're going to test on day 1 and then test on day 10. And so on day 1, if you have immunity and you still have immunity on day 10, you're free and clear to go. If you don't have immunity on day 0 and don't have it on day 10, you haven't seen the virus yet, stay in isolation. If you have it, if you're 0 and then you have it on day 10, we test again another 10 days later, and then you're clear to go.
And we can't order that yet.
Can't order it yet. We'll be seeing it. The company just got capitalized and is rolling it out, and it's going to be doing large-scale blood testing, which has right now to date, because they've done hundreds of thousands of tests using this in China and Taiwan, with their numbers are 100% specificity and sensitivity. It doesn't lie. You either have it or you don't. And while the PCR tests have a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives. So I put out in my blog. If I haven't, I'll put this out shortly. Anyway, I'll tweet it out.
I like that. And people are asking, like, what can we do right now? One of the things, we talk about natural killer cells. Having more NK cells is a good idea. Adequate selenium will do that. And there are actually studies out there, you know, adding selenium increases NK cells by 82% and things like that. So if you're low, okay, maybe you have selenium supplements, maybe you don't. There's two different forms. There's sodium selenate, which is an older one that probably works better according to some of the most brilliant people I know. But there's one that's bound to cysteine molecule is the most likely one you'll get. Or you could eat a couple of Brazil nuts every day. And as long as you find ones that don't taste like mold, they tend to spoil quickly. Then you're gonna like it. Zinc, absolutely. There is evidence for all viral infections, just for general immunity. Having adequate zinc or even extra zinc is a good idea. There are studies on topical zinc in the nose that make it a good idea. And vitamin C. In fact, intravenous vitamin C has been used, apparently, from some of the things I'm seeing, very extensively in China and South Korea. Every functional medicine doctor that I know is saying, you know, this is worth doing. So ozone and vitamin C are the two things that I'd look at doing. These are medical intravenous things, or if you're going to do them at home, you do high dose oral, like enough to make you poop yourself. And I'll do a whole separate Instagram live. Just follow my page. I'll announce that ahead of time about ozone, where I'll just answer your questions. I'll show you my gear, and I'll do another one on vitamin C therapy, just so you'll know what to ask for if you go to your doctor or you want to do stuff at home.
People are asking about where to find. So if you just Google United Biomedical Group and San Miguel County, you'll see articles popping up about the announcement of what's going on. United Biomedical Group and San Miguel County. Just Google that. You'll see the county-wide test that's going on.
Okay.
You were going to say, pal.
We have 5 minutes left before Instagram is going to kick us off. Peter, your mindset stuff is perhaps the most important of all.
Pal, I apologize. I got to run. Let me end with this, which is I agree. Fear is a terrible place to lead from and to live from. We are living an extraordinary life. Anybody who can be on with us here, please, it's your goal is to help slow it down. Yes, in seclusion, but we're going to see incredible solutions coming. The entire world is focused on this common enemy for the first time ever in human history, and that's an extraordinary thing. And I have confidence in, my estimate is 200 million physicians, scientists, and technologists who are going to bring everything. We're going to science the shit out of this and solve this thing. And we're going to come out a stronger society, a more unified planet, and a better biomedical, pharmaceutical series of processes, so we're not cut short like this again. Anyway, Dave, I thank you for who you are in the world, and I love you, and appreciate time with you always. Thank you, Dave. Take care, everybody.
Peter is the guy responsible for the existence of SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, by the way, if you guys didn't know that. He started the X Prize, and the X Prize is what got private companies investing in space travel. It led to the first reusable spacecraft, and is one of the humans who has changed the entire trajectory of our species in a way that you'll probably never know. I mean, he's that level of master. So I'm always just I'm grateful to call him a friend and to get to spend quality time with him and to be able to share what he does with the world, because it is pretty darn epic. Now I have like maybe two more minutes. There's a couple of questions in here. Follow my Instagram thing or sign up for the Dave Asprey thing on the daveasprey.com thing. I'll email you. I am going to do a whole series on specific forms of gratitude for this. I'll do a whole series on ozone. I'm taking notes on this whole series on vitamin C. Basically another call like this. So you'll be able to sign up for those. I just want to be able to notify you of that. And I'll get some other people on. Also, Bulletproof Radio, the podcast. I'm doing special podcasts that are there for you. That are specific around my thoughts on COVID, including here's what to do, as well as some extras I'm bringing on at the last minute. So I'm just doing my best to share knowledge as a hacker of the human body. I'm not a doctor, not a medical doctor, no medical advice. People ask me, is the Bulletproof copper and zinc? I'm not allowed to say anything. Bulletproof does not diagnose, cure, treat, prevent, or do anything for diseases. We build human resilience. Will copper and zinc make you more resilient? If you're low on them, for sure. How many of the Bulletproof copper and zinc do I take? I take 2. How many should you take? Whatever your doctor says. On that note, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Stay positive, stay bulletproof, and just remember, today's a lot like a month ago. You might get sick any single day, but you probably won't. And you could die any day of anything. So live the day as if it matters and be nice to people, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And if you do that, whether you get sick or not, things are better. See you later.